Welcome everybody, welcome people who are streaming as well. My name is Dave Nadig. My job here is to ask the questions that you all might ask. I am not an expert in AI. I am a user of AI, like apparently almost everybody in this room. I'm joined by three gentlemen here who all are actually experts in some capacity in AI in terms of how it's getting used. I'm gonna go just ask people to run down, introduce yourself, and just 2 or 3 sentences on what you're doing with AI, in your case, Ben, with your company.
Sure. Ben Hunt, co-founder, president, Persient. We read all the news in the world, any country, any language, and then we use AI to track all the narratives in the world. So we track about 1,000 right now, big narratives, little narratives, market narratives, political narratives, you name it. And we add several hundred new narratives to track every month. So we use AI not to figure out what reality is. I have no idea what reality is. But I think I can tell you how reality is presented to us. And honestly, I think, especially for investing, that's kind of more important.
Got it, love it. We're gonna come back to a bunch of that. Jack?
Yeah, Jack Kokko, founder and CEO of AlphaSense. And you can think of it as technology behind some of the most important decisions in the business and investing world. The product is an AI search and market intelligence platform that puts the right insights and data points in the hands of decision makers at both financial firms as well as corporations, companies like Google, Pfizer, JP Morgan, and 6,000 others that are sort of making the big decisions about investing, acquiring, launching new products, entering new markets, just trying to process all the information out there in plain sight, as well as proprietary databases, and make better decisions, have an edge as a result of that.
Got it. And Michael?
Yes, Michael Cox. I'm the co-head of equities at Piper Sandler, which is a Minneapolis-based investment bank and broker-dealer. I've spent 25 years in the financial services industry. We've went through a number of different technological changes within the financial services industry. AI is the latest and is attracting a tremendous amount of attention, both within asset management, but also within investment banking and brokerage. So looking at ways to tackle that, deploy it, and boost productivity.
Great. So we're going to dive right into some of the big stories we're hearing about AI. And Michael, I'll pick up right where you left off. One of the big hype stories is, oh my gosh, all this capex. We've all seen these numbers. The charts that, I was one in the journal, I think, the other day that sort of showed that virtually all of the return of the S&P 500 for the last 2 years has been because of AI spend. I'm skeptical of those kinds of, broad brush analyses, but there's no question a whole lot of money is getting spent to put, cards in chassis and cool them. Is this overdone? It feels to me, as somebody who's not investing in it every day, exactly like wave division multiplexing did in 1999. It feels like a super hype for a huge build out that eventually gets taken over out of bankruptcy. Am I way off? Who wants to jump? Michael, you want to jump in there? Like, you're evaluating these kinds of companies. Where do you?
So I lead a group of research analysts that are looking at a variety of different sectors, including technology and the AI wave, and it's touching every part of our economy. And whether the valuation of NVIDIA is rich or not is not something that I could intelligently make a call on today. But I think that we are still at the very early stages of seeing what AI is capable of. So I would argue that the jury's still out on this topic, because at this point, we're looking at ways that could truly revolutionize the way our industry operates, and we're not there yet, and I don't know that we're going to get there, but it's hard, it'd be impossible for me to say that this build out is profitless prosperity, because at this point it could be significant, but we're just in the early stages of it.
Ben?
Yeah, I think it is important actually to talk about some of the numbers here. So in the first half of this year, AI capex, and it's not just a market phenomenon, right? This is, in the first half of 2025, AI capex contributed more to US GDP growth than all consumer spending. All of us here in the room understand what the US economy being such a consumer-driven economy. AI capex, I gotta say this again, contributed more to US GDP growth than all personal consumption. Those are crazy numbers, right? So, but the reason it's, I don't think, a bubble is that without that AI spending, the US economy would be absolutely in stagflation today. Right? I think a lot of us here think of stagflation as the kind of base case for what's down the pike. Without this massive spend, we'd be in stagflation today. And that's not tolerable for any government, but particularly our government. So I don't think it's a bubble. I think it's a train, honestly, because the only way I see either the economy staying out of stagflation and we've got to have this productivity boom from AI, or none of this, waves hands wildly, works, right? The interest rate cuts don't work. You don't have time to reshore manufacturing. None of this works unless you've got a massive productivity boom from AI.
Well, let's switch to that. Jack, are we going to get it? Like, you're in the business of working with companies to get that productivity boom. Are they getting it?
Well, I guess I would add to this. I agree. It's you can look at it from two sides. Like, one is the training the models, the other one is using the models, the inference side. Training models, obviously, people are having high conviction, spending and committing to spend hundreds of billions to train models to see where we go with AI capabilities that you get as a result, and there's no end in sight, and sort of you don't get to play unless you make those commitments and plan to continue to train. So that is going to happen. And then the question about inference, just looking at it from our angle, we're maybe some of the one of the earlier applied AI platforms that are seeing exponential growth in token consumption. We're seeing 1% of what Microsoft and Azure have all together on our one platform. So if we're sort of an early sign of what is possible on the inference side, there's going to be potentially a shortage. Like, we're certainly looking at it that way, that we're trying to lock in capacity, because once lots of people start to see the possibilities and the impact, you're going to see a shortage on the inference side as well. So I'm a firm believer in that.
So that would imply that no, the capex blowout isn't overdone, because we're going to need more and more of it. But it doesn't answer the other side of the question, which is, are people actually starting to get the productivity boom that you almost have to get to justify the capex?
And on that side, certainly there are lots of examples. The MIT study recently that talked about 95% of the AI projects within companies not being successful, not achieving their goals. There's a lot of truth to that. We see a lot of that. Companies are kind of driven to invest. There's a top-down mandate to invest in something to do with AI, to just even to fuel the narrative that CEOs feel the need to talk about in the market. So there's a lot of wasted AI spend, but there's also a lot of effective AI spend. And from our perspective, we're looking at this from like building a very practical solution that serves use cases that tens of thousands of users are using every day, and adding a lot of value. They wouldn't pay a lot of money for it if it wasn't, and we wouldn't see the exploding token usage if that wasn't the case. So I think in those use cases that have been built that actually are working, you're seeing tremendous upside. Certainly in financial research and kind of business decision making and acquiring information. It's a no-brainer use case. So I don't see any reason to not believe that is going to grow a lot. It's just like it's a sort of a tale of two worlds. One is inefficient spend in a lot of places when people are trying to figure this out, but ultimately the efficient and the impactful use cases are going to be found and are going to grow tremendously.
That sounds a little bit Pollyanna, right? Eventually we're going to have all these great use cases. Eventually the percentage of the spend that is wasted will come down, et cetera. I get that, and certainly I'm a hopeful and optimistic person generally, so I want that all to be true. But at the same time, I see the battle from the model providers all trying to outcompete each other in terms of what the models can do and what the inference costs are going to be. That seems to some extent like a race to zero, in that they're all just going to have to spend as much money as possible to outcompete each other. And yet, as a builder in the middle, folks like you guys who are actually using these tools, these outputs from the model providers, I keep seeing over and over again, the next revision of the model comes out, and all of a sudden, all this work I did building to the previous models is kind of been obviated. It's no longer relevant. I've seen this just in my own work. Like, I've built systems, and then the model revs, and I'm like, well, now I can just do this in a window. I don't need code. That happens over and over again. How do you build effectively when the very tool set that you're building on is revving as fast as you can build against it?
No, you have to really reorganize how you're building. And I think this is maybe part of why these internal projects within companies are failing. It just takes a lot of effort and expertise to be able to keep up with the leading edge. Like, the next model comes, kind of wipes out what you had been building before, and you need to be able to adapt quickly and adapt to the latest capabilities and figure out how you do that. And so the pace of development and innovation that is necessary to keep at that leading edge it's very high, so it's not easy to stay there.
Are both of you guys model agnostic, or are you?
Yes.
So
Totally.
Neither one of you are like, we are an open AI shop. You're just no.
For a given I think it's really dependent on the task that you're focused on.
Million percent. And I want to come over back to Michael, because you're in a big firm that actually has AI projects that you've tried to develop inside. I want to hear about that experience, if you're okay sharing it.
Yeah.
But before we do, I'll just say, as an example of what Jack's talking about, we don't use the reasoning models in our work. They're too expensive, right? And your point about there being capacity constraints on the token processing is absolutely real. And you see this both, I'll call it if you're an API user, but also if you're just using Claude right out there. If you're a real power user, you've seen a change over the last few months in your queries. It's optimized now to give you an answer quicker and a good enough answer, because there are some real capacity constraints out there. We're absolutely seeing that. But this whole question is the big one, right? Because nothing's going to stop this train of building the capacity, and the capacity is needed. Nothing's stopping that. What stops it is if we don't get the productivity. That's what stops it at the enterprise level. And individual users of general tools like chat, that's not enough, right? You've got to get these enterprise applications for this agentic future that we all hear about. That's got to happen. And I think it is companies that are actually starting to try this and said, nah, where the rubber meets the road here.
Right. Michael, to that point, what's your experience been?
So this perspective is unique to financial services, but I suspect it would be similar in other organizations. But from an IT security perspective, we look to internally develop our own Piper GPT, as we call it. And you'd find that to be the case at pretty much every Wall Street firm. There's been headlines around JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, a number of firms. At the end of the day, I don't feel that we're going to win the arms race at Piper Sandler. There are very talented organizations that are building tools and technologies that will eventually need to be adopted to drive that level of productivity. At least that's my opinion. Just in the past hour, I received an email from our rep at AlphaSense on AI. So they're hungry to show us their tools. But I do think there will need to be some level of consolidation amongst these different providers to create a packaged solution that can truly create that productivity enhancement. But it's not going to be the plan my weekend trip that we all use ChatGPT for. It will need to be more advanced applications, but it's very easy to see them on the horizon. Whether, for my line of work, producing research reports, our equity research analysts are doing this every day. The ability to do that far more efficiently. The ability of asset managers to consolidate information and make decisions faster and smarter, and trading decisions instantaneously. Like, there are very real, tangible benefits, productivity enhancements, revenue driving capabilities, but we need to find the right solutions to get from point A to point B. And I'm not convinced that the homegrown systems are truly going to get us there. Maybe as a plug for AlphaSense.
Yeah, I got to say, I mean, whether it's homegrown or not homegrown, I think we are so far away still from having true productivity enhancing, as in you can replace people with an agent. I mean, I think we're a million miles away.
I want to challenge that really directly.
Okay.
I just started a job with a company that's got 5 people in it called ETF.com. I have to make the decisions as one of the business managers. Who am I hiring? We're going to go build something fun, right? I'm going to need people to do that. The presence of AI, just cheap, boring AI. Everybody gets a $200 a month account, not the big, expensive API stuff. Just that, I'm 100% certain saving me 2 people. I would need to be 7 people right now instead of 5 to do exactly the same amount of work we're doing. Not because we're using AI to write articles, but because I can use AI to talk to the data more effectively. I don't need an analyst and I don't need a copy editor. So there are immediate impacts even at the small business level. Is the issue that we don't have a solution at the large business level?
I'm with you, for example, so I don't think you need paralegals anymore. And you don't need, it's a challenge for business models of big law, big banking, big accounting, that's based on these pyramids where you overhire at the junior level and you bill those hours out. It's an enormous challenge for those business models, right? Because each of those individual juniors is now much more efficient. And they don't need the large staff. And
but you can't bill them out at $800 an hour, right?
You can't bill them out at $800 an hour. But what I'm saying is you can't replace the junior lawyer. You can't. Right? You've got to hire for replacement now, not for billing them out. So yes, your business model shifts. But we are a million miles away from, we've got an agent that does the work of the junior lawyer. A million miles away.
What we are seeing is, let's say, in large banking departments or large consulting departments where we're seeing those firms very aggressively trying to figure out that can I automate a lot of the sort of repeated tasks that junior layer, like they're preparing the MDs, the partners for lots and lots of customer meetings. Well, can we just use an API to pull from a platform like ours and like feed
populate
them
the deck?
And, like put that in front of them, and do you need the junior person to spend a week on that if the AI can do it in 10 minutes and like automate those processes? Now, does it mean that you're going to have less people on the junior layer, or does it actually mean that they are now freed up to do more intelligent work? They all have degrees. They have
both are productivity.
They do a lot more, and I think you can actually drive smarter decision making. You can drive top line revenue. You can drive kind of maybe equity research. You can cover more stocks just because you have now much more reach.
It seems like a distinction without difference, right? I mean, because productivity is just work unit over labor unit. So like whether we have fewer labor units or more units at the top, you're doing the same thing. You're saying the balance of business shifts towards being lighter labor and more capex.
You're raising the bar, and so basically you have to be a lot smarter, faster, more efficient, and then the question is like, do some people raise the bar faster and smarter, and so they end up winning more business? Banker wins a deal, a big mandate, and drives growth in their business as opposed to cutting resources. That's where we're seeing this going.
Hang on. So having nicer decks, prettier decks, isn't the productivity boom we're talking about here. That doesn't cut it, all right? Because everybody's going to have that really pretty deck. And this is what I'm saying, is that we're a million miles away from having an agent that actually makes smarter, differentiated decisions that you can trust as a senior.
But I don't think we need to get anywhere near that for the labor impacts to be very real and very felt. Like, I agree with you. I don't think we're replacing like the middle manager who's running HR or something like that. But do I think that we're getting rid of video editors and line editors and coders? Not because nobody's going to code, but because somebody coding can do so much more work than they did before.
I'm with you on that, right? But when we're talking about productivity growth to drive economic growth, I don't think, like I say,
not big.
Prettier PowerPoint decks that everybody now has leads to growth.
No, but doesn't being able to write 4 times as much code as you could a year ago with the same staff?
So I've got 500
Do
engineers, and the debate internally is just, okay, we're just going to do more. We're going to do it faster, and partly it's what the market forces you to do to keep up with the much faster pace of development in AI. So, and partly it's the opportunity that it opens. You can do so many things with these brains in a box that you can now deploy in so many new ways. So at least we're not looking to cut. We're just looking for what is that capacity that you now freed up from those engineers when you can automate a lot of their work, actually enable you to do next. And it's a lot more than you were able to do before.
I mean, that's sort of what we're seeing in the hiring numbers, right? Which is not that everybody's losing their jobs. It's just we're not hiring as fast as we thought we might.
Yeah,
I mean, that cautious investment. Does my incremental dollar go to a person? Does my incremental dollar go to capex? Does my incremental dollar go to a service contract with OpenAI? That seems like the very real decision tree a lot of businesses. Michael, give us a little bit of a reality check here. Yeah. You're in the job of looking at equities as securities, and I do want to pivot a little bit to that. Do you look at different industries and say, this is one where I think we're going to see the boom, this is one where it's overhyped? Is it that specific?
That's a great question. I think that we're clearly in the phase of the pick and shovel boom, the capex build out. And as I think we've have generally agreed here, I think it's very difficult to say if this is a boom bust situation. There's clearly over promises in some areas of this, but I think that we're all believers that there are productivity enhancements. We're also looking at it to comment on Jack's comment that we're not looking to replace people with this. It is to raise the bar and put to more productive use our employees. So we're not looking at it as a replacement for labor, to be clear. But as we look forward, the way our research team looks at it is which industries or which companies specifically will be able to utilize the technology to drive the incremental revenue or margin improvement. And you look at what's going on within retail and consumer services businesses, taking loyalty programs that have been around forever and enhancing them to in ways that can truly drive foot traffic in the stores or in restaurants, drive average ticket. You know, these are concepts that have been around for a while, but are being enhanced at tremendous levels. So looking forward, it's going to be those companies and industries that can truly take this technology and produce at a higher level and drive revenues or profits exceeding those expectations.
I want to pivot a little bit to the business of running money, right? The asset management financial services business, because that is inevitably where people turn. I want AI to pick my stocks for me. I mean, that was the first thing we were hearing from people. And you could still, every day there's an article about somebody who's like used AI to pick stocks, and that was the big thing that won them all the money. You two in particular are sort of in the business of working with these large sets of data, like all the news in the world or market data or somebody's proprietary data set that they've got internally that they want to access. And Ben, I sort of think about what you're doing as you're looking at the ocean, like you're just looking at everything. It's not structured data. It's not constrained in any way. It's just all the stuff, and then you're trying to build insight on it. At AlphaSense, you're kind of in the business of helping people understand the boundaries of the lake, like what do they really want to talk to and how do they know they're getting it out of that. There's a tension in there, and I think we all feel it when we work with AI, between knowing that what you're working with is real and tight and good and secure versus opening up the lens so you can get that kind of surprising insight from the data. How does that tension show up when we start talking about something like market data? Like when we're talking about a stock, is it important to be able to keep the lens very wide, or is it more important to be able to have that absolute certainty on truth? Jack?
I'd say you need both, and that's always been our philosophy, that when people are making $1 million or $1 billion bets based on information, they need to be able, they can't trust this AI to tell them a conclusion from having done 20 minutes of inference and maybe weeks work worth, and then say, here's my output. That is not acceptable. You have to be able to very granularly tell the user, where did this information come from? Can I go and verify, dive deeper, read what this analyst at this bank was writing about it to gain confidence, or not, to question the conclusion that the AI drew. So the AI is sort of taking some liberty of and creativity in writing its output. It's almost taking a position based on like real data. You've got to build guardrails to make sure that it doesn't hallucinate in that process, but it still has to try to draw conclusions when it's doing chain of thought reasoning. So I think that's, if you strike that balance right, you can achieve both aims. You don't want to have it run wild, but you need some creativity to be able to have a reasoned output and get really the value from the language model's capabilities.
I mean, Ben, how do you guys wrestle with this? Because you're taking the big approach. How hard is it to get that narrowed down?
So this is the problem that everyone has with AI. Everyone in this room, everyone sitting up here. Michael, when you're thinking about, how would I want to use it at Piper Sandler to help us in our business, we all start off using it with the general tool, right? ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. And we all have this experience where our mind is blown. Oh my God, this is amazing. And it is. And it is. The ability to do that research, to ask it questions and the like. All of us who are in it long enough, and the enterprises who do their own experiments with it, we all hit this trough of disillusionment. And it stems from asking any of these generative AI, any of these LLMs, an open-ended question. You cannot ask it an open-ended question. You cannot do that. Your mind will be blown when you start doing it, and it'll have the conversation with you, and you'll think this is great, and it is. But when you really try to put it into practice, whether it's investing or anything else, asking the open-ended question, it will tell you what you want to hear. It will please you with its answer. It will, and you'll think, it'll tell you you're smart. It'll tell you, yes, this is very interesting that you thought to look at this company. And your questions are very well put, and this is the crucial issue with this company. That is the universal experience we will all have with this as investing. The way to fix this, and this is what Jack's talking about, is you have to, I don't even think of it like guardrails, right? You have to put the AI just in a box. You have to constrain it massively in what data it's allowed to look at, in how it's allowed to think. That's the part we try to focus on, is it's called context engineering. It's not just prompt engineering, although that's crucially important, right? Asking it in a way that's not open-ended. Beyond that, it's in constraining the AI, treat it like an operating system, not as the full-fledged stack, but just as the operating system where you constrain it in every way, the data that comes in, the semantic layer, which is the layer we try to play at. I know there's a lot of $10 words, but you ask, how do you provide structure in this ocean of unstructured data? You have to tell the AI what the structure is. You cannot ask it what the structure is.
So, by the way, I see sort of two ways. I call that scaffolding. So, sort of guardrail
exactly.
Scaffolding. And that's partly these models are trained to have a certain level of capability. But then, if you want it to be really good at one use case, like thinking like a financial analyst, well, you want it to understand the same kinds of things that an analyst works and learns through their training, such as
100%.
I shouldn't look at Motley Fool, I should trust Morgan Stanley Research more.
But this brings a whole nother set of problems, which Michael, you brought up earlier, which is if everybody's using the same tools to do the same things, don't we end up with effectively AI groupthink? The analyst one to me is a perfect one because I'm currently in the middle of working on a book for the CFA. Like the CFA corpus of stuff is pretty much the default manual on how you do analysis, right? I mean, that's what getting a CFA means. So everybody I've talked to who's trying to figure out like security analysis with AI takes the corpus from the CFA, uses that to train what an analyst does, and then applies that to the market data, which sounds great, but doesn't that mean we end up with the most average analyst in the world working at every firm making the same set of decisions? I mean, Michael, how do you use this in an investment process and not turn it into just a groupthink engine?
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous risk, and active managers have faced significant challenges with the shift towards passive management, as a plug to our hosts here today. And the active managers are rapidly adopting AI technologies. We see it in all of our largest clients building their own tools in-house, and some of it to aggregate information and update financial models, like very basic tasks, as we've talked about. But as you look forward to more advanced applications of stock selection, portfolio creation and construction, I do think that there is a risk of this groupthink phenomenon that ultimately makes active management look a lot more like passive management with just higher fees. So I think there's an element here that the active managers need to continue to marry their AI technologies with the instincts and expertise and experience of the active managers, the portfolio managers, to the extent they're good at generating alpha, and use that to drive efficiencies and inform decision making. Because if they fall into the trap of allowing it to make the decisions, I think the business model, quite frankly, could be broken.
So I would take the other side a little bit of that.
Yeah, me too.
In that if you have a tool that can in 10 minutes do the kind of research and data gathering work that would have taken a week from a human analyst, then that analyst can ask a lot more questions. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer sort of the simple questions that you ask. You can ask things from so many angles, look at so many more scenarios, that I think the analysts can actually get more sophisticated that way. Then it's about who asks the best questions and who thinks the most deeply and in the most comprehensive way about a problem and makes the best decision. So I think these tools actually, used in the right way, can enable more variability in thinking and approaches across the market, as opposed to, of course, if you apply it in the way that, quants and systematic strategies have often been sort of very similar and correlated, that could happen if everybody's thinking the same way and building automated system. But if it's smart humans now being able to unleash this capability and do research much more efficiently and faster, then you'll get smarter and less correlated thinking in the market.
Yeah, I actually very much agree with what Jack's saying. So I think the ship's already sailed on the problem for active managers. I mean, good Lord, we all know that. And I think the core of that is that structured data, price, volume, all that data, it's so over-tilled, right? What you're describing as the problem we might see, everybody's looking at the same thing. Man, that's already happened with structured data. And I think that's why you have the only edge you can have in structured data that's public and where private information is illegal. What's the edge for active managers, right? And I really do think that by opening up this continent of unstructured data and making it available to be collected, evaluated, thought about, questioned, right? This is a whole new source of potential alpha generating information that has not yet been over-tilled like all structured data has been.
I mean, isn't the counter to that everybody's going to have access to the same data and the same tool set, and therefore everybody's going to come to the same set of conclusions?
And if they're asking general questions with general tools, they're going to get crappy answers on that.
Right, but I mean, you have to then posit that somehow that active manager is so much better at asking the questions than the next active manager if they have access to the same tools, which leads us right back to where we've been with active management for the last 50 years, which is the average person doesn't get it right. The average person gets it wrong after fees. That's the problem. So how does this help active managers? To me, it sounds like it makes it worse.
I'd say there's more opportunity for differentiation when you have these tools that allow the same number of people to do so much more work and be much more rigorous in their analysis, because AI is doing so much of the heavy lifting up front that now you can focus all your energies on the differentiated thinking and probing and scenarios and taking a number of different theses and testing each one of them to see which one you believe in. So I'd say actually the research efficiency allows you to be more differentiated in your thinking.
All right, we have 10 minutes almost exactly here. I do want to have some chances for questions. We have some mics if people want to run those around. Please don't speak until the mic's in your hand because the people streaming wouldn't hear it at all. So while we run a mic around for people with their hands up, I just want to ask really quickly each of you one simple question, which is, what are you most excited about over the next year or so in the AI space? Like what shoe is about to drop that we might not know about? Ben?
Really cheap, open source, good enough models.
So just the efficiency.
No, that I can get off of being prisoner to Sam Altman.
And that you can pay somebody else less to get the same action.
That I can have
Yeah.
open source weights and run it on my own server on AWS.
And just pay for the compute fee.
Yep.
Jack?
One thing we see is sort of automation of voice and being able to, like what we're building is an AI analyst that interviews lots of experts at scale and comes back with a lot more information on any topic. And now that human conversation can be simulated at a high enough quality, you can actually have a lot more information gathered from the market in that way.
Interesting.
Within my own application, it would be that consolidation of vendors or offerings that could then present a package solution that could be combined with what we're building in-house to like really further the use case and drive that.
So really productization,
Right.
right? That feels very rare. Yeah. Where do we end up with microphones? Right here. Yeah, can you hand it to this gentleman there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Maybe you can go next. Sorry about that. I don't mean to front run you. I'd like the group to comment about the possibility that AI, instead of creating productivity, actually creates negative productivity because it makes us dumber. Arguably, the single most successful implementation of machine learning is the recommendation engine in your social media feed, which makes everybody stupid. So could you talk about the possibility that AI perhaps hacks our brains and makes us less capable of governing ourselves and thereby creates a drag on the economy with bad policy and other things?
I love this question. Does anybody want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll jump in right now. We absolutely abdicate our autonomy of mind every day when we do the scrolling. And I'm hooked. I think most of the people in this room are hooked. We were talking before we started broadcasting, I think we had a few moments of silence and I've got this urge to grab my phone. And so we've abdicated our autonomy of mind. So that's true in an aggregate sense. I really do believe, I absolutely believe it. And I think the tools available for entrepreneurial small teams to do what would have required enormous scale in the past, that's absolutely true too. So I think both things can be true at once.
And I'd say this allows the smart people to be a lot smarter and do a lot more, but training that smart person becomes harder if college students or engineers are, and junior analysts, if they're all sort of relying on AI so much, or on sort of you don't have the apprentice systems across the finance industry that have existed. That's where you can start to lose a lot of the path to the smart people that, so the smart people in the industry today are going to be a lot smarter and more effective, but will you have those in the next generation and the next one after that?
There's probably a whole angle on education here. We could do another 3 hours on, but I'll skip that. And other questions, if we could run the mic back there. I see a hand up. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Go ahead, yeah.
So I got two quick questions. One of them might get me drug out of here. The first is, I get the beauty of productivity, but is anyone actually asking, should we even do this given the externalities and the negative impacts? Is this just another multipolar trap, kind of like nuclear weapons, where we feel that we don't have a choice, so we're running full speed toward a potential demise as far as energy usage and whatever else, simply just for GDP? I get they're all in here for capitalism, but
so
let's jump into that question first.
So you can ask that question in public, and the answer is it doesn't matter. Nothing stops this train.
Yeah, unfortunately, I completely agree. I mean, I happen to think you're right. It's a fantastic question.
I think you're right, but nothing stops this train.
I just don't see. Did anybody? I mean,
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And then I think it comes down to society, human nature evolving in a way that we can do this with the energy aspect taken into consideration. But it's just like human evolution.
I think the comparison to social media is actually more apt than the comparisons to the internet, which is what often gets used here. Social media was one of those things where I don't think anybody asked whether it was a good idea, right? It was just a way to make money, and so that's what happened. And then society and politics and policy has to react to what then happened as a result, and that's what we're wrestling with as a society. So, I think people are asking the questions, just nobody with any power. So, I don't think, to your point, I don't think it matters. Yeah. Sadly. I do want to get to a different person back there, if you don't mind, run that down there.
Yeah, haven't we kind of been here before? I mean, if you're talking about going from the wagon train to the railroad, now going to the jet plane, you already went to, for example, the spreadsheet and the dissemination of financial information via things like Bloomberg and the enormous number of applications which are being applied to various types of financial analysis, which completely reinvented how people did things over the last 50 years. So while it's difficult to forecast where this is going, is this just a set of different tools? And it's difficult to see how people are going to apply them, but kind of we've been here before.
I mean, yeah, sure. We've had innovative breakthrough technologies, maybe not at the speed, but
so the most difficult part of any, I call it network infrastructure buildup, is the last mile, and we are in that last mile phase where the build out is happening, right? The transmission wires are there. We actually need more capacity, to Jack's point earlier. The question is, how do you connect? How are you getting end user, which has to be enterprises? How do you connect that last mile? That is always the question, and we're light years from having it solved right now.
I mean, Michael, let me ask you this question on this front. We have seen these things. We've seen these transformative technologies just in my lifetime, 2 or 3 of them. To me, it feels like the answer to the question is, but this time it's all happening faster because it's always happening faster. Yeah. Does it change how you think about looking at its impact on the economy because of that?
Well, I think it gets to some of Jack's comments about inferences and the next layer to the technology. If this was just supercharged Google searches, then yes, this is an absolute capex bubble. And there is not the productivity or efficiency gains that we're all banking on. But to address the question, the prize here being something so much more profound and significant in the way we operate, not only in my industry, but in others, I think that's where the why it is different. And it could be speed, but it's also the capabilities, the scale.
Yeah. Okay. We have any more questions? One over here.
I'm an advisor with Principal Financial Group, and I also have a background in education. And my question to you, I know it's a huge area. My question to you is, many of us are parents here. What kind of skills do you want to see in the next generation of kids that are coming up, from a technology standpoint, from an AI standpoint? And you guys are leading organizations that are hiring employees that have that higher acumen from analyzing data and getting them prepared for a different revolution, I guess, with the AI technology.
Yeah. So what do we want kids trained up in right now?
I'd say they both need to be trained without AI, so they actually learn the real skills and the critical thinking and kind of learning through mistakes and doing all the things that people have done before to truly learn things thoroughly. At the same time, they need to be really good users of AI, and that's how they have an edge over the current generations in the workforce, where they can come in with superior skills in how to apply this technology and be so much more effective that now they become really attractive people in the workforce, entering the workforce. So. Yeah, that's. I think you need that combination, and certainly need some oversight to make sure it doesn't lean too heavily and use AI for everything. If you can achieve both, then you're actually raising some really capable people in the next generation.
Could just quick on our last hires. I mean, and what I'm looking for, I want complet majors, and I want humanities majors. I'll say,
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I'd say just a few years ago, we were looking for those that had Python skills and programming skills, and as I look at it today, I want people, vast majority of jobs are sales related, so being able to present in front of people, comfortable with sales skills, independent thought, like I think it's evolving in a really interesting way of what those skill sets look like, because some of the technology aspects are becoming more table stakes to these roles.
Yeah.
Love it. Critical thinking, right? Critical thinking.
Have you guys seen that? It's on Twitter or other places that it's a blurb from Dickens. It's a reading comprehension paragraph from Dickens. I don't know, Bleak House or something like that. Anyway, you can look it up. It's a paragraph, and it's written in that Dickens style. I want to hire somebody who can read that paragraph and get it.
And tell you what it means.
And tell you what it means. Right?
All
If
right.
you can't tell me what it means, I don't want to hire you.
I love it. Well, we've run out of time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I've certainly learned a lot. I think we have a 3 or 4 minute break, and then we're coming back in. So thanks very much.